Okay, so, well, I will welcome everyone and say either good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good late night, based on where you are. This is a LiquidText webinar. For those of you who are active users of our product, you'll know that the last 8 months have been a very, very active time for us. We launched our inter-platform syncing and subscription services in September of last year. And since that time have released a half a dozen feature upgrades, offering lots of new capabilities within LiquidText, mostly driven by your requests. And today's webinar, Craig is going to be going over best practices in LiquidText, but particularly going into many of these new features, what they do, how they work, and the like. So with that, let me turn the presentation over to Craig, and we take off from there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen, and good morning, everyone. This is Craig Cashman, founder and CEO of LiquidText, coming to you today from a little north of New York City, New York. As Stephen said, what I would like to talk to you about, what I would like to talk to you guys about today is the new features that we've been adding. As Stephen said, we've added a lot of stuff over the past, well, especially over the past 6 or 7 months, even after the syncing launch. Things like document replacement, things like text-based inline links, linking across projects, linking across apps, selecting your highlights, selecting your search results and creating highlights, auto-excerpting your search results, and much more. And I'd like to talk to you about at least a handful of these today and walk through them, explain a little bit about how to use them and some of the best practices. Now, I know some folks on here are already really familiar with LiquidText. I know some folks on here, though, this is your first time ever using the app. You're just getting familiar with us now. Maybe you haven't even installed it yet. So I want to spend about 1 or 2 minutes just giving a really brief background, and then we'll jump right into the demos and discussion. So just to start at the top, what is LiquidText? What do we do? Well, we know that computers help us to find great content, right? And we know computers help us to compose great content. But how do computers help us read, understand, digest the content that we find and actually make sense of it? And the problem is, in a lot of ways, they don't, right? It turns out that about 80% of professionals would rather do their reading on paper, excuse me, on paper versus on computer. That's shocking. That means this technology that we've been creating, that we've been using as the medium for all of our content consumption, is in some ways making things worse. Well, why is that? So we investigated a lot, and a big part of the reason why is because most of the way we've approached digital reading is by taking paper reading and replicating it on a machine. And the problem is it doesn't work very well, because the machine ends up inheriting the limitations of paper, but without really inheriting its benefits. With LiquidText, we approached it differently. With LiquidText, we said, let's not start from trying to replicate paper. Let's start from the brain. Let's start from how people actually think and work and what they need when they do this kind of deep, intensive business work and school reading. And from that, we did 4 years of research at Georgia Tech, 2 peer-reviewed papers, and a doctoral dissertation, and created LiquidText, which is really designed to help you find your information faster, take better notes, and discover connections in the things that you're reading that you otherwise would have missed. So with that said, of course, we launched in 2015. We're on PC, Mac, and iPad. We've gotten some great accolades. And just to toot the horn of my team, we just a few days ago were named Microsoft Store Editor's Choice for Productivity for 2022. So I think we're probably the only note-taking, or rather the only productivity app that's an editor's choice for both Apple and Microsoft. So we're very grateful for that. We've gotten all kinds of nice accolades, and What 360 called us world-changing. So, okay, enough about tooting the horn. Let's get on to the demo. So to walk you through a demo, we're going to go into the app here. And to describe these new features, instead of just showing them as a bunch of one-off sort of disconnected pieces, what I want to do is walk you through our sort of standard demo use case that I think folks who've seen these webinars before might have seen me do, the stem cell, the Arlene McCaffrey stem cell patient demo. I want to walk through that again but modified, where now we talk about how you use these new features to speed up the process and to add some new capabilities as part of this workflow. So for folks who've never seen LiquidText before, you won't have to worry about what you've missed. And for folks who have seen it, you'll get to see how these new features make things better. Okay, so we'll start by kind of just pointing out where we are. This is the LiquidText app. Here's where we list the projects that are in this folder. And we'll start by opening our McCaffrey stem cell case project. Okay, so the story behind this, the story of this project is, let's say you're an attorney for a patient, Arlene McCaffrey, and your patient just had a new stem cell procedure done to relieve her hip arthritis. Unfortunately, it didn't work. Instead of relieving her arthritis, it just gave her inflammation for a couple of days in her hip. Then the inflammation went away and the arthritis was still just as bad as ever. So your client says it's the surgeon's fault, whereas the surgeon says your client just wasn't a very good candidate for the procedure. So we need to figure out what's going on here. So the first thing we're going to do is let's look at the LiquidText, at sort of the structure and layout of the LiquidText screen, right? So this is the LiquidText editor. Over here on the far left, we have the documents that are a part of your current project, right? You see we can organize these documents into little folders and so on. Next to that, we have the document or documents that you're currently reading. And after that, we have the workspace. This is where you can take notes, write ink, and things like that. Okay, so to start with, let's go to the regulatory bodies folder over here and go to the American Stem Cell Association best practices. And we're going to go over to the workspace, and I'm going to create a little text box and say, let's see, is our client a good candidate for the procedure? And maybe I'll just highlight that red. And now as we go on through the ASCA best practices, we see a very important point here. It says most adults are indeed good candidates for the procedure. Well, that's important. That sounds like it goes against what the surgeon said. So I'll take this guy, pull it out, and connect it right here. Okay. But it also mentions over here, see figure 1 for a more detailed algorithm of who is and isn't a good candidate. Well, I'd like to compare this text with that diagram, but that's actually kind of hard to do. They're on different pages. But one of the big things about LiquidText is helping you see the important things together. So I'm just going to squeeze with my fingers. I could do this on a mouse and keyboard as well, but in this case, I'm using my iPad. So I'll just squeeze with my fingers and the document squishes together like it's made of rubber. And I can bring the text and this diagram side by side, just like this. So now I'll take the diagram and just snap it out into the workspace. And so see what I've done. I've gathered bits of information, notes from all different parts of this document and organized them together in the workspace. And of course, I can tap these little arrows on the side to get right back to the source, just like that. Okay, so now that we know a little bit more about what makes a good candidate, let's find out if our patient actually is one. So I'm going to go back to my documents list here, go to the patient medical record, and here we have it, Arlene McCaffrey's medical record. And so to find out if she's a good candidate or not, first, let's see. We'll have my pen here. Maybe we'll make a little bit of a thicker pen and just circle her name, go down, and here are the main problems that she has, and we'll just follow that algorithm here. Is she under 65? Yes. Is she immune compromised? No. History of carcinomas? No. High blood pressure? Ah, yes, she does actually have high blood pressure right here. So it looks like she's in the closely monitored category. Well, one of the really cool things that I can do with LiquidText is I can connect anything to anything. I can link information, discoveries, knowledge to its source. And since I just circled that our client is in the closely monitored category, it would be nice to connect that directly to where that information is coming from, to why I made that judgment. So one of the really special and unique things I can do in LiquidText is I can actually just draw a line with my pen from the source document to any of my notes. And look what it's done. It's created a live ink link connecting between these 2 points. So later on, wherever I am, I can always touch this link and it brings me right back there. All right, this is great. I think we're in a lot better shape now. Let me add a little note saying client is in closely monitored category. So that means the surgeon may actually have had a point, but it's still not clear just how it's still not clear whether he was actually right or not, or whether our client is at fault for not being a good candidate, or whether he's at fault. But I'd actually really like to look at our client's X-ray, and I see the X-ray is not included in the medical record. And I just realized that just an hour ago, they sent me an updated version of the medical record that includes the X-ray. But this is terrible because I already marked this one up. I annotated it. I created links and excerpts. So what do? Well, you can imagine this happens to folks all the time, right? Especially folks in the legal space. Oftentimes you've marked up and annotated a deposition, a draft, and then later on you get a new version of it. And your annotations now, you have to remake them. Well, that's terrible. So what we said is you can tap configure document. And we added a new feature, replace document. What replace document does is it lets you take a new version of a document that has more or fewer pages and replace the original with the newer one. Let me show you how that works. We'll go to select file here, and we'll go to patient medical record new, and see it says the original had 6 pages, the new has 9 pages. We click next, and it does a whole bunch of it actually does computer vision and image processing to try to figure out which pages are new pages and which pages are existing pages. And then it shows you this great dialog box here. It shows you in the green the pages that have been added, and if there were any removed, it would show you in red the pages that have been removed. And what it's going to do is it's going to replace the original with the new one and move all of your annotations, ink, everything to the corresponding page in the new document. So let's confirm that replacement. And there we are. Look at that. Our ink is all in the same places. Our ink links magically work exactly as they should. And now, but you see it's the new version because now we have that X-ray right there. So this is an incredibly useful feature, especially for folks who have to deal with new versions of documents coming in. All right, that's great. So now we're in a good place to continue. The next thing I'd like to understand, now that we know whether our client was a good candidate, I'd like to find out a little bit more about what the surgeon actually did. So I'll create another little box over here. I'll say what the surgeon did. Just put that over here, mark that maybe in blue. And to find that out, I'll go back to my documents list on the left, go over the depositions, and we'll open the surgeon's deposition transcript. Here it is. Now, the first thing I'll tell you about this is I already went through this earlier, and I highlighted the key steps the surgeon took, right? And I didn't just highlight them, I tagged them. So for example, you notice all these greens here. If I tap them, you see it says procedure step. That was the tag I applied. So the way I would do that is I can simply select some text, go to tags, and tap procedure step, and it applies the tag. Okay. So I've already gone and tagged these. So the first thing I'd like to do is kind of see the overview, see how one step kind of flows into the next, but they're spread over many pages. So I'm going to tap highlight view, and now I can pinch my document to bring together all of the highlighted material just like this, right? In this case, again, I'm doing this on my iPad, so I'm just squeezing the document with my fingers. But if I was doing this on my PC or my Mac, I can just do this with the mouse by scrolling the mouse wheel as well. So I bring this together, and I can see all the steps. I can squeeze apart to get a little bit more context. Very nice. Now, the next thing I'd like to do is, since this is really critical for understanding what actually happened to our client, I'd like to put a link to this document in the client's medical record. So I'm just going to select this bit of text right here, go to tap the 3 dots, and go to copy link. Now, this is a new feature that we just added, and I'll show you guys a lot more about this over the rest of the webinar. But what this does is it lets me create, just simply copy a link, a URL, to basically anything inside LiquidText. So in this case, I just copied a link to this. And so now what I'm going to do is go back to the patient's medical record, and just as a note for myself, I'm going to select name, write a comment, and say, surgeon was Dr. Feld. And then I'll hit paste, and it pastes in a link to that other document. So now anytime I want, I can always just tap this, and it takes me right over to that other document. Now, there's other ways we can do this as well using ink links, and I'll show you those in a minute. But this is a really exciting new one that lets you put links right in line with your text. Okay, great. So now as we go on, we see all these steps the surgeon took. The surgeon took the stem cell culture, they grew it, they prepared for patient for surgery. I'd like to take all these and bring these out into the workspace, but there's a lot. And, it's going to be a lot of work to select all these one after another. And the reason I may want to do this is because very often when people work in LiquidText, first they select a bunch of text, they highlight it, they tag it, and then later they go and pull it into the workspace to start manipulating it and organizing it. So we want to make that workflow faster. So what we did is you can go to search, and let's say I do a tag search here for procedure step. Search for tags, and you see it finds all the instances of anything with this tag in this document. And now I'm going to hit a new button. See on the little on the search bar here, we have select all. I'm going to hit select all. Now it selects all the instances of this tag, and I'm going to tap auto excerpt. And look what it does. It brings everything out right into the workspace, just like this. So now it's not a manual process. It's not one at a time. It does it all for me automatically. It's really great. And now I can start to take these steps and I can organize them. I can gather them together. I can form groups, whatever it is I need as my process goes along. Okay, so this is a really good start. The next thing, though, that I'd like to do is, since this deposition transcript is really going to be critical when I'm actually in court, there are certain key terms that I want to be able to discover really quickly later. So, for example, I know that the discussions about what exactly happened with with my client's joint is going to come up. So I'm going to go to search, and I'll do a search for joint, and it finds all the instances of it, of course. But I'm going to go to select all, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's create a comment on every instance of the word joint, and let's say references to joint. I'll pull this out into the workspace here, put this down at the bottom. And so the idea behind this is that if I know joint is going to be important, instead of having to search for it, instead of having to type it in, I can have this link here that I can tap, and it'll immediately bring up every instance of the word joint, right? So if I know this is important, I can simply basically have all the search results linked to this comment right here. All right, when I'm done, I can simply tap the X to turn it off, and now delete it. Now that's great, but what if you don't want your link to your search results to be its own fully self-contained bubble, but you want to just have it in line with your other text? You can actually do that too now. So let's do a search again for the word joint and select all. And now I'm going to go to copy link. And now it's copied a link to every instance of the word joint in this document. And so now I'll create a little text box again, and maybe I'll say key references, joint, and paste. And here's a link to it. And let's say I know also issues around the stem cell culture are going to come up several times. So I want to be able to find all of those quickly as well. So I'll say culture, and maybe we'll also do a quick search here for stem cell culture, select all, and copy link. And again, paste, and now we have all those references right in here. And so now whenever I like, I can tap, and it brings me to all the instances of the word joint. Or likewise, I can tap here. You see it's flashing them in yellow, brings me to all the instances of the word culture. Just like that. Okay, so this is great, and this means now your search results are effectively savable. Okay, so back to our story. So I've gone on, I've looked through all this, and let's see what the surgeon did. Okay, they took our patient's blood pressure, they performed the arthroscopic incision, inserted a dissolving joint spacer, dried the bone fascia, removed the synovial fluid, added the matrix gel, let it sit for 15 minutes. That sounds like it could be important. Shaved off a small bone spur, applied the stem cell culture, and finally closed the patient up. Well, on the face of it, I don't see anything that looks suspicious, but let's learn a little bit more about how the procedure is supposed to be done. So we'll go back to our documents list on the left. We'll go to the Galaxogen product info, and we'll go to the Galaxogen product manual. We scroll down here, and it lists all the steps that the surgeon is supposed to take. And let's see. Patient pre-op, prepare the bone fascia, articular cartilage, insert the joint spacer. Well, going through these, and it looks very reasonable. I don't see anything that's obviously wrong. It says, leave the gel undisturbed for 15 minutes. They did that. And it seems to be correct. It seems from this that the surgeon followed the instructions to the letter. But obviously something went wrong. So maybe what we could do is we could take a look at the phase 3 clinical trials for galaxidrin and see if there's any hint there about what might have happened. So let's see. We'll go over to regulatory bodies. We'll go over to phase 3 trials for galaxidrin. And we'll do a search for the word inflammation, see if there were any people in the trials who had inflammation as well. So inflammation. And by the way, you'll notice I can start doing a search just by typing. I don't actually even need to hit the search button. And that's one of the great things of LiquidText. We try to really speed these search workflows up for you. So you can start typing and it'll just give you these different options. So I want to search the document, so I'll just press return. And there we are. And now I can actually pinch just the same way I did when if you recall earlier, I pinched to bring all my highlights together. I can pinch to bring all of my search results together as well, right? I can see them all at once, and I can see which ones look most relevant. In this case, this one here looks most interesting. So I'll expand this, turn off search mode. And it says that during the clinical trials, there was one case where a surgeon left the ICM gel on for only 2 minutes. And in that case, the patient had a failure of treatment and all they had was some joint inflammation. Very interesting. That seems remarkably similar to what happened to our client. Let me pull this out. So I'm going to take this out, bring it over here into the workspace. Maybe I'll highlight this red so we can find it easily later. Now, the only problem is, this is down here, that our surgeon claims that he left it on for 15 minutes. So I don't know what to make of this. Maybe what we should do is let's go take a look at the nurse's deposition transcript. So we'll go back to the documents list on the left here. I'll tap lead nurse deposition transcript. And let's see if the nurse sheds any light on what really happened there. So first thing you'll notice is the nurse's deposition transcript. I also highlighted it and tagged the key individual steps. So we're in a good place to start with. Now, one thing I'd really like to do is, since this is really critically about Dr. Feld, I'd like to see all the instances of the word Dr. Feld in this. And so I'm going to do a search for Feld again. And of course, it finds all the instances. I can pinch to bring them all together, of course. But again, I'm going to do that select all thing that we did earlier. And now I'm going to tap tags. And instead of applying the procedure step tag, I'm going to add a new one. I'm going to say party surgeon. And I'll apply a little bit of a brighter color here. And now look what happens. We've tagged every instance of Dr. Feld's name in this. So this means if I was, let's say, in court, just as I scroll through this, I could instantly see Dr. Feld in this, and I wouldn't have to do an explicit search for him. So we can just speed things up a little bit this way. Okay, so now we see Dr. Feld everywhere here. We see the steps, and let's see if there's any indication of a problem. And, you know, on the face of it, it doesn't look like there is. Everything looks great. It said the nurse even agrees. They left the ICM matrix gel on exactly 15 minutes. Well, that seems to be right. But maybe there's something we're missing. I'd like to compare what the nurse said with what the surgeon said side by side. So I'll pull out the surgeon's deposition transcript and bring it up right next to what the nurse said. Now, let's see, if we look at these, do we see anything here that looks like it could potentially have been an issue? Well, on the face of it, everything looks reasonable, but now I actually do see something that could be an issue. You know, the nurse says that they shaved off a bone spur after about 10 minutes, and the surgeon actually agrees with that. But the nurse makes one really important additional comment. The nurse says, and see, it's so easy to find because Dr. Feld's name is highlighted right here. The nurse mentions that the doctor flushed out the joint with saline right after shaving that bone spur off. Well, this changes everything. This means that what might have happened is that the surgeon basically washed off the ICM matrix gel by spraying saline into the joint before 15 minutes had been completed. Well, if this is true, then this changes everything. Then this may explain what happened, but it's still premature to come to that conclusion. But the first thing I want to do is I want to take this note here and pull it out into the workspace so I can keep track of it, because this really could be critical for us. The second thing that I want to do is I want to connect these two documents, right? Since these two both really build on each other right now, I want to show that relationship. So I'm going to use my pen and just draw a line from the nurse's deposition transcript into the surgeon's. And look what happened. It created a live ink link crisscrossing back and forth between my two documents. So if I close this one, I can always tap this ink link and get right back and see what the surgeon said. Think of how useful this is in court or in any situation, right? A big part of how LiquidText helps people is it helps you find information quickly. So in almost any context, whether you're quickly preparing for a test, whether you're preparing for a client meeting, or whether you're in court before a judge, you can get to that key piece of information you need with one tap virtually instantly. Okay, so I think we're in pretty good shape now. This is all starting to really come together, but there's still one thing I'm really not sure about. Is it possible that spraying saline would actually get rid of the ICM matrix gel? I mean, would saline even cause a problem? So the first thing I want to do is go back to my documents list here, go back to the Galaxtrin product manual. And first of all, we see you are indeed supposed to leave the ICM matrix gel alone for 15 minutes undisturbed. That's just what we thought. Let's pull that out as well. But again, could saline actually disturb it? Well, let's go to the materials safety data sheet for Galaxtrin, and we'll scroll down a little bit, and maybe we'll see something here that would help us understand this. And looks like we found it. Solubility in water, very high. Well, that really does kind of explain it, doesn't it? So if the solubility in water is high, just spraying saline actually probably would get rid of the ICM matrix gel. So I think at this point, we have a pretty good understanding of what actually happened here. So I'm going to create a little note for ourselves. Say we'll raise the font up to 14 here, and we say conclusion. The surgeon washed away the ICM matrix gel after only 10 minutes. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to include an inline reference to this in line with my text. And again, this is one of those great things that we can do with that new feature we just added with inline text links. So I can go right back to the, let's see. Well, actually, I'd rather go to the surgeons here. So you see, I find it really quickly, go right back to the surgeon's deposition transcript, select this point about the 10 minutes, copy link, and we can just paste that right into our little conclusion bubble here. Next, I want to note that, let's see, the ICM gel is supposed to set for 15 minutes. And for that, we'll go right back to the ICM, or rather to the Galaxtrin product manual. Select this, copy link, paste that in there. And so the failure is to be expected based on the clinical trial data. So finally, then we'll go to this point from the clinical trial data, copy a link to this as well. And paste that in there. And so now, wherever we are, I can tap any one of these, you see, and get right back to the source. So it means I can do more than just taking my early notes and excerpts in LiquidText. I can actually start to compose my conclusion. Okay, so this is great. And now when we're done with this, we can go tap send, tap notes outline. And of course, it takes all of our highlights, all of our notes, all of our excerpts and everything, and builds them into a nice linear document that I could send over to Microsoft Word, Google Docs, or whatever I need. And you see all those links and everything are embedded right in this final document. If you click them in from another app, they'll actually take you back into LiquidText to see what they referred to. Okay, that's great. So this is the end of the first piece, and this is most of the things that I wanted to show you guys, but there's a couple more. And for that, we're going to switch over to the Mac. Okay. So one of the things that people sometimes want to do is you have your LiquidText files, your LiquidText projects inside LiquidText, but in some cases, you might also like to organize things in a traditional folder hierarchy on your PC or your Mac. So what we said is maybe we can help you with that. So if you open a LiquidText project now, let's say our lovely Cupcake Shop Market Research project, you can go over to the More menu here, and we have this new thing, drag, copy, link. If you drag this, it'll create a file, an LT link file, wherever you drag it to in your file system or on your desktop. Likewise, maybe we'll go over to Saving the Honeybees, and we'll do the same thing. We'll drag this link out right here. And so now I can click on these, and it'll bring me right back and forth between my two projects. So now my LiquidText materials no longer have to be thought of as separate from the file system. They can effectively be integrated in together. Okay, now the next thing I wanted to show you, just delete these. The next thing I wanted to show you is links that aren't file system links, but are URL links. Now I showed you those before within the app, but I want to show you how these work across apps. So we'll just open regular old Mac text edit here. Of course, all this works the same way on Windows, but I have to be doing this on my Mac. So let's say we open text edit, and I would like to, let's say, have a link to one of the honeybee diseases we're concerned about, varroa disease. So I'll just go to copy link here, and we say, just paste that right in the text edit. Now, on the other hand, maybe I go and go to a totally different project, go to how we made LiquidText, and let's say we go to this excerpt right here. I can do the same thing, copy link, and paste that right in there. All right. So now, wherever I am, even if I'm in no project at all, in fact, even if LiquidText is closed, I can just tap one of these guys, and you see it brings me right in there, and it even highlights the point that the link refers to. If I click a different one, brings me into the project and highlights the item that it refers to. So this is really great, right? Because in some cases, your LiquidText workflow may involve taking notes in LiquidText, but then putting other notes in other apps, and anything from text edit to OneNote to Obsidian. And you want to be able to keep your LiquidText links and your Obsidian notes tightly connected. And now you can, right? Just simple copy a link and paste right into the other app. One of the other great things is you can actually do this between different LiquidText projects as well. We find that some people want to create so-called sub-projects in LiquidText, right? So sort of child projects, but there's no good way to link between projects within the app, or at least there wasn't until now. What you can do now is you can actually go into a project, and if we've copied one of these URLs, we can just directly paste them. And so I can just tap this link. It says open project. Yes, I want to. Brings me right there. And again, highlights and flashes the item that we're referring to. Okay. So that's it for the main user. That's it for the user-facing features I wanted to show you guys. Before we finish, there's just a couple other, or one other new thing I want to mention to you. Let me go back to my iPad here. And we'll go back to PowerPoint. So this isn't a user-facing feature, but it might actually be still of interest to several of you folks on here. So some of you may work in enterprises or institutions that are extremely sensitive to security and actually don't let you connect to cloud services like the LiquidText cloud service. So if that's the kind of environment you work in, we've actually recently created a version of our LiquidText server that can work within your institution's own data center. So we have not formally announced this yet. We've just started deploying it to a couple of select initial clients. We'll be formally announcing it a little bit later in the year, but you guys get a sneak preview. If any of you are interested, feel free to reach out to us or visit our enterprise page on our website and contact us there. Okay. So with that all said, are there any questions?
Hello. So we are open for Q&A right now. And I'll read them, act as moderator here. So pardon me if I murder your names, but Prabhakar asks if we can provide a feature to undo the recent action with something like double tapping screen with 2 features and a redo action for like tapping 3 features. It's available in things like Concepts and GoodNotes. And what about LiquidText?
No, that's a great question. We haven't gotten a ton of demand for that, but we have had a couple people ask for it. So I would say one of the best things you can do for us is you're going to, those of you who don't already have access to our forum, you're going to get a link to the forum afterwards. We'd love you to post the features that you're interested in. We watch these closely. Please contact either our customer support or post on the forum with feature requests, and that's kind of how you upvote them for us. And as Stephen mentioned earlier, the things that users are really looking for, the things that are really critical for the workflows that you described to us, those are the things that we add. So we'd love to hear more.
Okay, an anonymous attendee notes, does it matter where the documents are stored? If I was using a Dropbox, OneDrive cloud storage option, would the linking of documents still work? Or do you strongly recommend using the LiquidText cloud instead?
I strongly recommend using the LiquidText cloud. And the reason why is whenever LiquidText doesn't operate by saving links to, rather, well, let me phrase this carefully. LiquidText, whenever you import a document into the product, it saves a copy within the app itself. It needs to do this because we need to do certain processing on it and things like that. We also need to have it within the app itself so that the cloud syncing will work properly. So if you want to have these sort of magic links work the way that you saw in this demo, you really would need to have the cloud service if you want that to work across multiple devices. You don't need to have the cloud service to have these links work within a single device. But to work across devices, you would need to have the cloud service.
Okay. Sachin asks, how does deep linking work? If we move files, will links break?
Again, great question. No, they won't. So again, when you import a file into LiquidText, we've made a copy of it into the LiquidText infrastructure. And the links ultimately point to that. So as long as you have LiquidText installed on your device and you have you're fully synced, so you have access to that file and it's synced locally on the device as well, then the links work. If let's say the file was originally imported from Dropbox and you delete that file from Dropbox, it will make no difference for the deep linking.
Okay. Min asks, hi, could we substitute old documents with a new version where the pages are the same, but the new version changed some content?
That's a great question. So the system isn't principally designed for that. We kind of wanted to put some limits on it because eventually it becomes just an extraordinarily complex problem. And so we figured this was the place we wanted to start. So I'll answer your question in 2 ways. I'll say first, if the changes aren't too much, then yes, it'll work fine. Like let's say there was an image and the image got updated a little bit. Let's say, a few words were changed here and there, then yeah, it should handle that without a problem. If there's significant changes, like let's say a paragraph was added on one page, and so all the other text has now reflowed across the other pages, it won't work very well for that. But what I'd say is document replacement in its current form is our first version of it. If you want it to work, if you want to use it in other scenarios and use cases beyond what it does right now, definitely please let us know.
Okay, Will asks, we'd like to see a share feature where others can access and edit or just comment. Sounds like collaboration.
Yes, thank you, Will. We would like to see that very much too. We're working on it now. It's set for launch later this year. So we'll keep you guys very much in the loop on that. And let me say something else. Right now we're kind of developing the infrastructure for it and kind of the internal database things that are going to be needed to manage it all. We would love to hear about the specific use cases that you have. And this goes for all of you folks. We'd love to hear about the specific use cases you have for how you would want to use collaboration, why, who you'd be collaborating with, how many people would be collaborating at once. We'd love to hear as much as you can tell us to make sure that we build this in a way that's going to really support your needs well. So again, please write to us, hop on the forum, whatever, but we really want to know.
Okay, an anonymous attendee asks, when you have a lot of material in the workspace and it is large and wide, how do we best navigate around it to find what we're looking for, especially on a smaller screen like a laptop?
Yeah, great question. So right now, the best way that I recommend to do that is zoom out and zoom in is a really good one. It depends a little bit on the type of content, right? If it's a lot of textual content, we have, of course, search in the workspace can be a very fast way to navigate around, but we really designed it to be very, very flexible around quickly zooming out and zooming in. We tried to get the graphics to be really fast. We, put a lot of effort into that, and that generally should work pretty well for you. But in cases where maybe that pushes up against the boundaries and you want more organizational tools, I'll give you a sneak preview that we are hopefully within about the next 8 weeks going to be launching Workspace Pages. So you'll be able to create, instead of one infinite canvas, you'll be able to create as many workspaces as you want in the same project with different names, different titles, different styles and colors, and link between them as well. So we'll be giving you some more tools that may make this even easier. But for now, I'd recommend zoom out and zoom
in. Jeff asks, do links persist when projects are saved, then reloaded? Extending the question, suppose I have a markdown file that includes links into an LT project. Can I send the .md file and the saved project file and have them work on the other end?
If you're doing it through a saved project file, no, those are not really going to work. The reason is you can import the same project into LiquidText from a saved project file a dozen times, right? So each time, though, that's a different set of objects that are being created. So when you import a project file, we basically create a whole new LiquidText project based on that file. The links, which are basically encoded to the IDs of the objects inside the LiquidText project, all of those are going to break. The way I would really recommend doing this is using the LiquidText cloud service. With the LiquidText cloud service, the same project is actually syncing among all your different devices. And so you can send that markdown file from one device to another. And since it's actually the same project on all your devices, that link in the markdown file will always work exactly as expected.
Okay, going back to the questions about navigating and viewing the workspace, Floyd notes, also, can we easily see all areas of a workspace when you have a lot of material in it?
Generally, yes. If you have too much material, then seeing the whole thing at once is going to be a little bit of a problem. But let me just show you as an example here. So we tried to make this really easy in the sense that you'll notice over here, we just have a zoom out button. You can also just double tap the workspace background with your mouse or your finger to just zoom the whole thing out. And you'll notice when we zoom the whole thing out, we have these little labels to give you a sense of orientation, so you know at least what some of the excerpts are, so you have a sense of where you are in it. And of course, you can zoom the workspace out quite dramatically to about 5%. We don't let you go out lower than 5% because if you try, there is a certain point past, if we try to show too much stuff on the screen at once, it can actually really affect performance. So we wanted to kind of find a balance to, for most cases, let you see everything you have. But in cases where you have a truly enormous amount of stuff, then we don't want to risk damaging the performance too badly or cause out of memory errors. But generally speaking, for most people, just zoom out like this, or of course, the double tap should get you a nice overview.
Okay. Sachin asks, is it possible to limit the infinite workspace to an A4 page size so that it would be easy to print?
That's a good question. It's not possible to limit it, but what is possible is to configure it. So we can go to configure right here, say loosely A4, maybe we add a little border in there, and done. And now you see it's a bunch of A4 pages. So now if you did this at the beginning, when we were setting you were pulling things into the workspace, you could just all arrange them in along A4 page boundaries. And then when you go to print, or when you go to send it off as a PDF, you go to PDF file, when you go to options, just be sure to match pages to workspace background pattern. And then the PDF that you generate, everything will fit along those pages.
Okay. Will asks, can you please clarify the hierarchy of files, documents, folders, and projects?
Great question. Thank you. So the top level of the hierarchy is the LiquidText project. A project can contain an arbitrary, we'll just actually show it here, like this, for example. So you can have, and of course, we can create project level folders and things of that nature. And here's, so for example, we can tap here, we can say new folder. And so this is a project level folder. And of course, this is a project. I tap this and open it, then it takes me into the project. And here over on the left, you see everything within the project. Within the project, we have within project folders. We have basically document level folders that you can use to organize your different documents. And of course, within those, you can have more document level folders. It can be arbitrarily nested, but the idea is all of these things live within a single project. And I would add to that, if anything about the kind of structure and hierarchy, in fact, if anything about the app is confusing, right? You know, we're doing something that's a little bit different from most apps in the sense of, you know, basically bringing this document consumption and note-taking together into this unified experience. If anything about that is confusing to you, or if it was confusing to you when you first got the app, we would really, really love to hear about it.
Okay, Jeff asks as a follow-up, on occasion there are issues with synchronization. This is not a criticism of LiquidText so much as a fact of life with server-based data. It is useful to be able to keep local backups, but if going back to a local backup breaks the links, it compromises their usefulness. Looking forward, it would be nice if a project could be loaded back and resume its status.
Well, I would love to hear a little bit more about the situation that you're facing. And LiquidText does actually keep a full local backup of everything. So if you get, for example, disconnected from the network and you're using our cloud system, in fact, even if you disconnect from the network and you never ever reconnect, the app will continue to run fine. It does not need network access. For being able to create a backup and then restore from the backup, we actually do have some solutions. In addition, a backup that's separate from our cloud syncing system. We actually do have some solutions for that. But I would say for that, contact us directly and we can learn a little bit more about your needs.
Another question, is there a quick way to link to web pages for reference without importing them as PDFs?
Yes. If what you mean is, let's say we go to can't type today. Okay, and let's say we go to our new Enterprise Edition page. And we just copy this here. And we go right back in here. I can just paste this right in. And we can tap this. And if I tap this, then it asks, do I want to import this into the project or not? And so we could, for example, say, add to current project. And then it brings it up in a pop-up, just like that. So is that what you're talking about? And so I'll leave you to post a follow up on that one. If you're interested in something else, by all means, let us know. We've thought about adding more web integration and what that would look like. So if there's a workflow that you're thinking of there, we'd love to hear more about it.
Okay, next point, an anonymous attendee asks, can you widen the rather narrow areas where the colored small bars are between the document and the document list show up to make it easier to see?
In the scroll bar. No, there's no way. You can of course widen the document list, and of course you can widen the document. But the scroll bar itself, no. But one thing I will mention is, let's see, just go to one of the deposition transcripts here, that it becomes a little hard to see because we try to lighten it so it's not too, so the highlights aren't too distracting. But as soon as you scroll the document at all, as soon as you move it, all the highlights on there become full richness of color. The colors become fully opaque so that you can see them more easily. And then when you let go, then they lighten a little bit again.
Okay, Min asks, is it possible to insert pages images into existing original PDF files?
That's a good question. No, right now we do not have support for that. We've had a couple people ask for that, but it hasn't been a very, very popular request. But I would ask you, please tell us a little bit more about your workflow and what you're looking to do with it. If a lot of folks think this would be really helpful for them, we can certainly add it.
Okay, Ken asks if you can just open a page to take notes of a meeting.
That's a really good question. And the answer is right now, that's a little awkward. Right now, the way you would do that is you could, of course, import a blank document, or you could take a document, shrink it down, and just take notes in the workspace. But we know that's not the smoothest workflow in the world. We've been having conversations internally about being able to create, let's say, just a blank LiquidText project that where there's no document side and it's just the workspace. You can just take notes right there. We've also talked about being able to add sort of empty documents where you can just keep adding more pages and take notes there. We're sort of in the early planning stages for that. So we would love to hear more about your thoughts and what you guys would need from it. Is this the kind of thing you would want to do? And let's say, add a new workspace page and take the notes there, or do you really want to take them in, something like equivalent to like a blank document pages? Under what circumstances would you want to use this? We'd love to hear more because we're actually planning to support this. I don't have a specific timeline for it yet, but it's on our roadmap.
Floyd asks, can you import audio like from a lecture into the documents?
Not yet.
Okay. Jeff notes, it would be useful to be able to open a web link in a browser instead of importing it. For example, one might want to include links to large websites, videos that are not suitable for inclusion as a PDF.
That's a fair point. Yeah, please. I would say for that one, we'll keep track of that, but please write that. Tell us a little bit more. Write us a comment to support@liquidtext.net or post it in the forums. And we'll see what we can do.
Ken asks if we can be more specific about a timeline on introducing recording lectures and adding notes.
So adding the recording lecture, the audio support, I can't be more specific on a timeline for that yet. That unfortunately is one that we've gotten some demand for it over the years, but that's been relatively low on the demand side. So I can't really tell you more. I would say, post it on the forum, bring it up in the forum. Let's see how other folks react to it. The more interest we see from the LiquidText community, it definitely raises the priority for it. So I'll say that one is we want to do it, but there's no specific timeline. The other point about being able to take notes within the app outside of a document, that one is sort of already been green lighted. I don't have a specific timeline for it yet, but we're sort of already started work on what it's going to entail. So definitely, please let us know your thoughts about either general note taking or audio recording. We're very happy to add them. But yeah, just the more feedback we see from you guys helps.
Min notes that he is a master's student and sometimes needs to insert some important screenshots into files instead of a workspace.
Interesting. I would say, please write us with a lot more information. I'd love to know why, and sort of the context, why you need to do that. I know that can sound like a silly question, like you need to do it. The reason it matters is understanding the use case and the situation why you need it can help us potentially see places where something you're asking for overlaps something that other people are asking for too, and makes it potentially easier to find solutions that'll work for everyone. Because we can't build these things as one-offs for every use case. So understanding the underlying need makes it a lot easier for us to find solutions that'll help as many people as possible.
Okay. Can you demo how you make use of the back and forward document navigation arrows? I find that they're too sensitive to scrolling and pauses in the document to be useful.
I would love to hear more about that. Usually it's simply you scroll, wait a second or two, scroll, wait a second or two, scroll, wait a second or two, and then you can go back, go forward, go forward. Basically, if you stay anywhere for more than, I forget the exact number now, but something like 1,000 to 2,000 milliseconds, it considers that a place, and then it adds it to the list. If that's not working for you, please tell us a little bit more about how you scroll and how you tend to navigate your documents. Maybe we can tweak, if we see this as a problem for folks, maybe we can tweak it a little bit, or improve the algorithm.
Okay, we are just about out of questions and just about out of time. One last question. Can you please also importing into an existing file? Oh, well, this is pretty much the same question that Min had asked, is for importing into a file. So, okay, let's see. We have one last question. Etienne asks, can you perhaps repaginate imported documents or delete advertisements that are imported with a web page?
Well, repagination is definitely a challenge. I guess depends on how far you want to go with repagination. But I understand where you're coming from. Being able to actually edit the PDFs and edit the imported web pages is not something that's sort of on our roadmap for right now. But again, if it's something you need, we'd love to hear more about it. And if other folks really need it as well, potentially we can add it. The reason is simply repaginating PDFs, editing imported PDFs and web pages is very challenging. So it can certainly be done, but we would need to see, very clear user need for it.
Okay, a bunch of thank yous, and excellent. I think we're done. So I will comment. Thank you all for attending. There will be a recording posted later today. The recording will come with a link to our forum. So what you get the recording and you get a membership in our user forum, and we encourage you to actively participate there. Craig, myself, and other team members from LiquidText are constantly watching it. And if you have suggestions for new features or other things you want to discuss, it's there. So thank you very much for participating. And we wish you all a great day. And until the next time, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone.